Robert Louis Stevenson. Treasure Island. Chapter 31. The Treasure Hunt. Flint's Pointer. "Jim," said Silver when we were alone, "if I saved your life, you saved my life, and I will not forget it. I saw the doctor wave to you to run away with the corner of my eye, and I saw you say no as clearly as if I heard it. Jim, that is 1 point for you. This is the first small hope I have had since the attack failed, and I owe it to you. And now, Jim, we are going to look for this treasure, with secret orders too, and I do not like it. You and I must stay close together, back to back, and we will save our lives in spite of fate and luck." Just then a man called us from the fire that breakfast was ready, and we soon sat here and there on the sand, eating biscuit and fried meat. They had made a fire big enough to roast an ox, and it was now so hot that they could only come near it from the side where the wind blew, and even there not without care. In the same wasteful way, they had cooked, I think, 3 times more than we could eat. And one of them, with an empty laugh, threw what was left into the fire, which burned and roared again over this strange fuel. I had never in my life seen men so careless about the future. Living from hand to mouth is the only way to describe how they acted. With wasted food and guards who slept, although they were brave enough for a quick fight, I could see they were not fit for anything like a long campaign. Even Silver, eating with Captain Flint on his shoulder, said nothing to blame their careless behavior. This surprised me even more, because I thought he had never shown himself so clever as he did then. "Yes, mates," said he. "It is lucky you have barbecue to think for you with this head. I got what I wanted. It is true they have the ship. Where they have it I do not know yet. But once we find the treasure, we will have to move quickly and find out. And then, mates, we who have the boats, I think, will have the advantage." So he went on speaking, with his mouth full of hot bacon. In this way he gave them hope and confidence again, and I strongly believe he also helped himself at the same time. "As for hostage," he continued, "I think that was his last talk with those he loves so much. I have got my piece of news, and thanks to him for that. But it is finished now. I will take him with me when we go to hunt the treasure, because we will keep him like gold, in case something happens, you see, and for now as well. Once we have both the ship and the treasure, and we are at sea like happy companions, then we will talk to Mr. Hawkins, and we will give him his share, of course, for all his kindness." It was no surprise that the men were in a good mood now. For me, I felt very unhappy. If his plan worked, Silver, already a double traitor, would not hesitate to follow it. He still stood on both sides, and there was no doubt he would choose wealth and freedom with the pirates instead of a small chance to escape hanging, which was the best he could hope for on our side. Nay, and even if things happened in such a way that he had to keep his promise to Dr. Livesey, even then, what danger was waiting for us? What a moment it would be when his men stopped doubting and became sure, and he and I would have to fight for our lives, he a cripple and I a boy, against 5 strong and active sailors. Add to this double fear the mystery that still stayed around the behavior of my friends, their leaving of the stockade without explanation, their strange giving away of the map, and even harder to understand, the doctor's last warning to Silver: "Look out for storms when you find it." And you will easily believe how little I wanted my breakfast, and how worried I felt when I set off behind my captors to look for the treasure. We looked very strange, if anyone had been there to see us, all in dirty sailor clothes, and all except me armed with many weapons. Silver had 2 guns hanging on him, one in front and one behind, and also a big sword at his waist and a pistol in each pocket of his coat. To make his strange look complete, Captain Flint sat on his shoulder and talked nonsense bits of sea talk. I had a rope around my waist and followed obediently after the sea cook, who held the loose end of the rope, sometimes in his hand and sometimes between his strong teeth. To anyone watching, I was led like a dancing bear. The other men carried different things. Some had picks and shovels. These were the first things they brought from the Hispaniola. Others carried pork, bread, and brandy for the midday meal. I noticed that all the supplies came from our stock, and I could see that Silver had told the truth the night before. If he had not made a deal with the doctor, he and his mutineers, left without the ship, would have had to live on water and what they could hunt. Water would not please them much. A sailor is not usually a good shooter. And also, when they had so little food, it was not likely they had much gunpowder either. So, ready like this, we all set out. Even the man with the broken head who should have stayed in the shade, and walked one after another to the beach where the 2 boats were waiting for us. Even these showed signs of the pirates' drunken foolishness. One had a broken seat, and both were dirty and full of water. We took both boats with us for safety, and so, with our group divided between them, we moved out across the calm water of the anchorage. As we rowed, there was some talk about the map. The Red Cross was much too big to guide us exactly, and the words on the back, as you will hear, were a bit unclear. They said, as the reader may remember, like this: Tall tree, spyglass shoulder, pointing a little to the north of north-northeast. Skeleton Island, east-southeast and by east. 10 feet. So a tall tree was the main sign. Now, right in front of us, the anchorage was closed by a flat highland about 200 to 300 feet high. On the north, it joined the sloping south side of the spyglass, and towards the south it rose again into a rough, rocky hill called the mizzenmast hill. The top of the flat land was full of pine trees of different heights. Here and there, one of a different kind stood 40 or 50 feet higher than the others, and which of these was the special tall tree of Captain Flint could only be decided when we got there and by using a compass. Yet, although this was true, every man in the boats had already chosen his own favorite place before we were halfway across. Only Long John shrugged his shoulders and told them to wait until they arrived. We rowed easily, following Silver's orders, so that we would not get tired too soon. After quite a long journey, we landed at the mouth of the second river, the one that runs down a wooded valley of the Spyglass. From there, turning to our left, we began to climb the slope toward the plateau. At the start, the ground was heavy, wet, and muddy, and thick swamp plants slowed us down a lot. But little by little, the hill became steeper and more rocky under our feet, and the forest began to change and grow more open. It was, in fact, a very pleasant part of the island that we were now coming to. Strong-smelling bushes and many flowering plants had almost taken the place of grass. Groups of green nutmeg trees stood here and there among the red trunks and wide shadows of the pine trees. The smell of spices mixed with the scent of the pines. The air was fresh and moving, and in the bright sunshine, it felt very refreshing to us. The group spread out in a wide shape, shouting and jumping here and there. Near the center, and quite far behind the others, Silver and I followed, I tied by my rope, and he moving slowly, breathing hard as he walked on the loose stones. From time to time I had to help him, or he would have lost his balance and fallen backward down the hill. We had gone on like this for about half a mile, and were coming close to the top of the plateau, when the man far on the left suddenly began to shout loudly, as if he was afraid. He shouted again and again, and the others began to run toward him. "He cannot have found the treasure," said old Morgan, hurrying past us from the right, "because that is up at the top." And indeed, when we also reached the place, we saw it was something very different. At the foot of a fairly large pine tree, and caught in a green climbing plant, which had even lifted some of the smaller bones, a human skeleton lay on the ground, with a few pieces of clothing. I think a cold feeling went through every heart for a moment. "He was a sailor," said George Merry, who was braver than the others and had gone closer to look at the clothes. "At least, this is good sailor cloth." Yes, said Silver. "Most likely. You would not expect to find a bishop here, I think. But what kind of way is that for bones to lie? That is not natural." And when we looked again, it was hard to believe that the body lay in a natural position. Except for some small disorder, perhaps caused by birds that had eaten from him or by the slow-growing plant that had slowly covered his body, the man lay perfectly straight, his feet pointing one way and his hands stretched above his head like a diver, pointing exactly the opposite way. "I have an idea in my old foolish head," said Silver. "Here is the compass. There is the top point of Skeleton Island, sticking out like a tooth. Just take a direction, will you, along the line of those bones." It was done. The body pointed straight toward the island, and the compass showed E, S, E, and by E. "I thought so," cried the cook. "This is a pointer. Right up there is our line for the pole star and the treasure. But by thunder, it makes me feel cold inside to think of Flint. This is one of his jokes, no doubt. He and these 6 men were alone here. He killed them all, every one. And this one he brought here and laid down by the compass. My goodness, they are long bones, and the hair was yellow. Yes, that would be Allardyce. Do you remember Allardyce, Tom Morgan?" Yes, answered Morgan. "I remember him. He owed me money, and he took my knife ashore with him." "Speaking of knives," said another, "why don't we find his knife lying around? Flint was not the kind of man to take a sailor's things, and I think the birds would leave it." "By heaven, that is true," cried Silver. "There is nothing left here," said Mary, still touching around among the bones. "Not even a small coin or a tobacco box. It does not look natural to me." "No, it does not," agreed Silver. "Not natural and not good, as you say. My word, friends, if Flint were alive, this would be a dangerous place for you and me. There were 6 of them, and there are 6 of us, and now they are only bones." "I saw him dead with my own eyes," said Morgan. "Billy showed him to me. He was lying there with coins on his eyes." "Dead, yes, he is dead and gone," said the man with the bandage. "But if any spirit could walk, it would be Flint's. Dear me, he died badly." "Yes, he did," said another. "Sometimes he was angry, and sometimes he shouted for rum, and sometimes he sang. 15 men was his only song, friends, and I tell you truly, I have never liked to hear it since. It was very hot, and the window was open, and I heard that old song coming out very clearly, and the man was already dying." "Come on," said Silver. "Stop this talk. He is dead, and he does not walk, that I know. At least, he will not walk in the daytime, and you can be sure of that. Fear can kill a cat. Go forward and look for the treasure." We moved on, of course. But in spite of the hot sun and the bright daylight, the pirates no longer ran apart and shouted through the forest. They stayed close together and spoke quietly. The fear of the dead pirate had taken hold of them.